Hey everyone, I'm the Canadian lad and I just watched Iron Man 2 in 0.25x speed and found many new details that I might have missed in regular speed. But I'd like you to know that some of the details that I found may have already been discussed by other YouTubers, because it's practically not possible for me to watch every single video on YouTube that is made on Iron Man 2. At the end of the day, we have to understand that I'm trying to find new details on a movie that got released almost a decade ago. So it's perfectly normal if you find similarities between my video and others. But having said that, I will still try my best to give you at least a few new details from this movie, so without wasting your time, let's begin. Number 1. At the beginning of the film, when Ivan Vanko creates his first ever arc reactor, we get to see a montage of a few newspaper articles, and the last article we see is written by Rob Down. This is a very clever nod to Robert Downey Jr. and probably the only time his actual name has been mentioned inside a movie itself. Marvel is essentially having some fun by putting a random name out there that is so similar to RDJ's. Number 2. Tony Stark can turn on or give commands to Jarvis either by snapping or clapping. Here in this scene where Pepper approaches Tony with some aggression because he gave their entire art collection to the Boy Scout of America, but if we take a closer look, then we will see when Tony snaps his fingers, a light behind him appears to have turned on. Without slowing down the speed, it's very hard to notice such attention to detail. Also, if we fast forward to Avengers 1, where Tony Stark uses one of his decryption program to find out every dirty secret of S.H.I.E.L.D., notice how Tony snaps again, possibly giving a signal to turn on this device. Number 3. In the birthday party of Tony Stark, where he ended up fighting with Rhodey, they both crashed through the ceiling during their fight. Notice how Pepper got scared as she witnessed this horrible incident, but Black Widow, who was still undercover, was making a posture of preparing to defend herself. So Pepper's natural instinct made her scared, and Natasha's instinct made her adapt to a defensive skill. Now imagine if Black Widow got scared here as well. How much weak and incompetent would that make her? But because Marvel pays so much attention to every detail, they make sure every character behaves as they should. This kind of continuity in a movie is what makes a story great. Number 4. When Tony Stark used his suitcase armor for the first time in the movie, he had to put his legs first in the suitcase. But notice it has an option where it can be deployed from either side, because it carries 2 footholds from each side. So questions like what if Pepper threw the suitcase in a different direction cannot be raised, because Tony can get into it from any sides. Number 5. When Tony Stark plays a virtual game similar to basketball, just as he scores, the points increase from 17 to 18. But notice there's also another score of 9, indicating Tony has played against someone who has scored 9 points already. And if I were to guess, it must be James Rhodes, because I don't see any chance of Pepper playing with Tony's balls. Number 6. In the Grand Prix, as soon as Tony started racing, it revealed a name on top of a tent that caught my eyes. It says Favreau, and Jon Favreau is the director of the film. Upon further research on Google, Jon Favreau has a son named Max Favreau. This could be a subtle nod to his family, just like the Russo brothers have been doing in almost all their Marvel films. Number 7. The scene where Tony Stark rediscovers a new element was cut short from the original version of the movie. In a deleted scene, Tony asked Jarvis to find him everything from Project Pegasus, Exodus, and Goliath.
Give me everything from Projects Pegasus, Exodus, and Goliath. Get ready for a major remodel.
Project Pegasus is the light-speed engine that introduced us to Captain Marvel. Project Exodus is a secret research of S.H.I.E.L.D. working on mutants, and we all know mutants are indeed coming to the MCU in Phase 5. And Goliath was a S.H.I.E.L.D. scientific project led by Hank Pym experimenting with Pym particles.
Back in the day, I was Hank's partner on a project called Goliath. The only thing more tiring than going that big is putting up with Hank's bullshit.
Right.
So even during the production of Iron Man 2, Marvel had already planned years ahead of where it's gonna drive the stories. Number 8. In the final fight, Iron Man uses a laser beam that he can only fire once, and by looking closely, we can see that his suit was already preparing the laser beam when Tony was telling Rhodey to get down.
Get down!
And Tony used it again in Avengers Endgame for a very brief moment. Number 9. Going back to the scene where Tony was virtually playing something similar to basketball, there we can see the blueprints for Tony's suitcase armor. For another 15 minutes or so, the suit doesn't appear in the movie, so even before Tony was wearing it, the suit was already foreshadowed. Number 10. When the ex-wife failed to live up to its standard, Iron Man and War Machine both made fun of it, but the ex-wife is a kinetic missile. In order for this to work, the one who is firing it must be accelerating at a supersonic speed.
This is a kinetic kill sidewinder vehicle with a secondary cyclotrimethylene trinitramine RDX burst.
So it didn't really fail because Justin Hammer did a bad job. It just means Rhodey didn't really know how to properly fire it. And even if it did work, from the distance that Rhodey fired it, it wouldn't have only killed Whiplash. It would have wiped out both Iron Man and War Machine as well. So in a sense, it's a good thing that it didn't work. Number 11. Just before the Stark Expo presentation, Justin Hammer asked Vanko what can he make the drones do. Vanko replied he can make them salute.
Well, what can you make them do? I mean, this is a weapons demonstration.
I can make salute.
You can make salute? What do you mean make salute?
Now the word salute is Russian for fireworks, which Vanko eventually causes with all his drones at the end of the film. Number 12. When the police captures Ivan Vanko aka Whiplash, Tony destroyed his arc reactor, but just before doing it, Jarvis gave him a detailed specifications of this reactor. You can see that the energy output is 1.68 gigajoules per second, whereas the reactor Tony developed in a cave with a bunch of scraps could output 3 gigajoules per second.
What could it generate?
If my math is right, and it always is, 3 gigajoules per second.
Number 13. In the scene where Tony bought some strawberries for Pepper, he paid for it with his super expensive watch. But if we zoom in, we can see this might be the same watch that Obadiah had gave him as a gift in Iron Man 1. For all we know, it might not be the same watch, but Marvel has a tendency of including such little details, and that's why it makes sense to connect these two scenes. Number 14. When Ivan Vanko hacks into War Machine's system, the language of his user interface changes from English to Russian. Number 15. When Tony was doing a background check on Black Widow Natalie Rashman's profile, there we get to see she also used to work for Hammer Industries. This might be the reason why she was able to defeat the guards and find her way into the main room with such ease. Because she used to work there, she knows the security and the layout of the building very well. Number 16. When Tony and Pepper arrived in Monaco, a photo of them was taken. This photo appeared again in Avengers 1 where Tony confronted Loki in the Stark Tower. This amazing piece of for finding such an incredible attention to detail. Number 17.
I love to leave my door unlocked when I leave the house. But this ain't Canada.
I might disappoint you, but this isn't entirely true as well. At least not in my province.
It's a damn sad situation, okay?
And lads, please listen to Tony Stark because he was really ahead of his time.
I need you to wear a surgical mask until you're feeling better. Is that okay?
No. You have to trust me.
And that's all I have from this movie, and I hope I was able to give you at least a few new details in this video. If I did, then grab the subscribe button and please give me a thumbs up as well. It really makes me work harder knowing there are people who would appreciate my work. I'll see you lads in the next one.